On July 21st, the Central Discipline Inspection Commission announced Wu Qiren, general manager of Three Gorges Guangxi branch, is under investigation for serious violations of party discipline and the law.
This is the same Wu Qiren who, over dinners and drinks, kept vividly describing the Hangzhou death toll and the danger signs inside the Three Gorges Dam. The actual death toll after that dam collapse was 17,000 people.
Right, and online reports say it's even worse. At a bend in the river, hundreds of bodies were packed in one after another.
Right. The official report from Nanning's flood control briefing put it at 39 dead for all of Guangxi, 9 missing.
A few loose words over dinner got him detained. That tells you the regime is more worried about leaks than about the disaster itself.
For the Hangzhou flood, officials reported 39 dead. Insiders leaked 17,000 plus, off by more than 400 times. That's not a rounding error, that's selective accounting.
Wu Qiren's arrest makes you wonder just how much tragic truth is still being buried. Hello everyone, welcome to PinnacleView, I'm Shan. On July 21st, the Central Discipline Inspection Commission announced that Wu Qiren, general manager of Three Gorges Guangxi branch, is under investigation for serious violations of discipline and law. That news drew huge attention at home and abroad because just 2 or 3 days before, a figure traced back to Three Gorges' own Guangxi company said the Hangzhou reservoir collapse had already killed 17,000 people. So Wu Qiren's arrest makes you wonder just how much tragic truth is being hidden here. This year, the first year of what some call the firehorse flood cycle, floods have hit the whole country, north to south, east to west, wrecking countless lives and livelihoods. They call it a natural disaster, but there's a real man-made element too. And the thing getting the most attention, of course, is its close ties to the Three Gorges Corporation. Today we're going to talk about China's floods and the man-made side of it. Joining us today, senior media professional Ms. Guo and independent producer Li Jun. All right, before we officially start today's show, we still want to take a moment to introduce our partner's product, Puritang Black Ginseng. Black ginseng, you know, is regarded as a rare and precious tonic food. And just recently, we've been getting quite a lot of positive feedback from customers who've been using it. One friend, a Chinese immigrant living in America, flew back to be with his elderly mother, who has a lot of health problems, and had her drink 2 packets a day of Puritang's black ginseng liquid, made the traditional 9 times steamed, 9 times sun-dried way. The old woman's energy and spirits bounced back really quickly. Her daily activities and her other abilities as well all showed noticeable improvement. Now, she can not only go out normally, she often takes walks and exercises. Her family is thrilled to see her doing so well. And that's not just one isolated case. There's also another friend who went through colon cancer surgery. After his operation, he was extremely weak. After he kept drinking Puritang Black Ginseng products regularly, he told us his condition improved dramatically and that his appetite and his overall spirits were far, far better than before. Friends joke that he doesn't look like someone who just had major surgery, good color, feeling great. There's plenty of feedback like that. Once you hit a certain age, your body's reserves get drained. That's when a truly top-grade black ginseng, used for deep conditioning, can make your whole state of mind completely different. Of course, right now, when you buy Puritang Black Ginseng products at checkout, please go ahead and enter PinnacleView's exclusive discount code. That's JYLT, which is Jingyin Lunten in Pinyin, the first letter of each word, and you can enjoy free worldwide shipping. And there's also a gift. Once you hit a certain spending threshold, spend a full $500, and you'll receive 1 entire free root of black ginseng. And if you spend a full $3,000, there's an even more special deal on top of that. You also get a premium top-grade root of black ginseng thrown in for free. I've seen that premium root myself. It's genuinely huge. This deal is a rare one, so if you need it, don't miss this exclusive offer. Thank you all so much. Now back to our story. Li Jun, Wu Qiren getting arrested. I've seen it absolutely blow up across social media platforms, drawing an incredibly high level of public attention.
Right.
Honestly, you could call it a tsunami of attention. Walk us through it. Right, on July 21st, the Central Discipline Inspection Commission announced that the general manager of Three Gorges' Guangxi branch, Wu Qiren, is under investigation for serious violations of discipline and law, under review by both Three Gorges' own discipline body and Changsha's Supervisory Commission in Hunan.
Sounds like it's a local investigation. Wu Qiren was born in 1972, spent his whole career in the Three Gorges system, and used to be Deputy General Manager of Three Gorges Energy. Since February 2025, he's been legal representative of the Guangxi branch. That's a fairly senior rank. On July 10th, he was still out inspecting a project in Beihai, Guangxi. Then the day before the official announcement, that is, around July 20th, someone claiming to be an employee inside Three Gorges Group sent a tip to an overseas blogger saying that over in Hengzhou, Guangxi, the actual death toll after the dam broke and the water burst through was 17,000 people. He said police were still posted at the scene, blocking anyone, including rescue teams, from entering the disaster zone. He said orders had come from the top to keep the bodies from being discovered, to avoid triggering public outrage. Huge numbers of bodies were first burned out in the open using fuel, and then, once that method proved too slow, they switched over to using strong acid instead. He also said they didn't give advance warning before releasing the floodwater. Why not? Because relocating everyone was too costly, and the local government couldn't afford it, so they just skipped the warning. So once that account went up online, multiple different posts started spreading, including one citing people like Luo Xiang, and others under names like Breaking Through the Wall, several separate posts, not just the one. He said flat out, Wu Qiren got picked up because, over dinner after dinner, he kept vividly describing the Hengzhou death toll and the danger inside the Three Gorges Dam, seepage at the base, running at 30 cubic meters an hour. The timing actually lines up closely with the CCDI's announcement. The notice came out on the 21st, but this was already circulating online on the 20th. The internet exploded, arguing back and forth that Wu Qiren was arrested for leaking secrets, not for corruption. Either way, there's a huge amount of discussion about it.
When I first saw that 17,000 figure for Guangxi, I'll admit I doubted it. I was skeptical, doubtful.
Right, same here. I was skeptical too.
17,000 felt like way too many, like an entire county had drowned, was my first reaction. But because this came from inside Three Gorges' own Guangxi company, and then Wu Qiren actually got arrested over it, that actually made me believe it a little bit more. I mean, that's just the normal human reaction, honestly.
So what would you estimate the actual death toll to be? Does the government even have an official number? And if so, what is it? Well, the official announcement on July 9th at Nanning's flood control press briefing said that across the entire Guangxi region, 39 people died and 9 went missing. Now, of those deaths, the Liulan Reservoir collapse specifically was responsible for around 26 of them. And for 2 full weeks after that, the number never moved. It's like officials just froze the story right there. That's it, final number. Logically, that makes no sense. What you find on day one can't possibly be identical to what you find later.
Right, of course.
You'd expect new discoveries here, new discoveries there. The number should keep updating, but it never updates at all. But what locals are saying is completely different. I saw an Epoch Times interview where a local villager said he believed the death toll was at least 4 digits.
Over 1,000.
Right, 4 digits means over 1,000. Because in some places, he said, entire villages are basically gone. The wildest claims overseas came out around July 20th from someone claiming to be a Three Gorges insider that Hengzhou lost 17,000 people and police wouldn't let anyone into the disaster zone. He described a mother who, when the water hit, tied herself and her 3 children together with rope, and all 4 of them died. And at a bend where the current circled back, he said there were hundreds of bodies packed together, and when excavators dug in, they found even more underwater. Now, we should say, none of these specific details can actually be verified at this point. It's all just what's been leaked and posted online so far. But honestly, even if it turns out to be just half of that leaked figure of 17,000, that's still an absolutely terrifying number.
Right.
8 or 9,000 people, that alone would shock the whole world. This is only a mid-sized reservoir, and if it killed that many downstream, your warning system, your evacuation, your flood release decisions all failed badly. If anyone's held accountable, this isn't something a provincial party secretary can absorb, not even the governor. Honestly, a vice premier resigning in disgrace wouldn't be an overreaction. But sadly, the party only knows how to cover things up. It will never admit to this.
Right. That's exactly it. That matches what I saw circulating online too. That's exactly the story that's been going around. Yeah. There's also the one about a mother, the one you mentioned, who tied herself together with her 3 children, and in the end, all 4 of them died, right? So this online public outcry, this is genuinely spreading and fermenting inside China right now.
I know that in the first few days, armed police and even some army units went in to help with the rescue effort. But then, after just 2 or 3 days, all of those people pulled out and left.
So what's actually going on now? People outside are watching closely, very closely. Well, you know, Guangxi is a place that floods pretty much every single year. So this really shouldn't be the situation we're seeing right now. And honestly, that's what makes this such a deeply worrying thing to watch unfold. So the real issue in Wu Qian's case isn't actually about whether he was corrupt. Everybody already knows Three Gorges Group has corruption problems. That's old news. He'd only just taken up this post, barely 6 months into running one regional branch office. Because Three Gorges is essentially a ministry-level entity, so running one of its branch companies still makes you at least a bureau-level official. And a few loose words at a dinner table getting him investigated and detained this fast. That tells you the regime's sensitivity about information leaking out has completely overtaken its concern for the disaster itself. And that's why they moved this quickly. If it turns out there really is a connection here, then that tells you the situation in Guangxi is extremely serious, not just ordinarily serious, but truly extremely serious. Because when a system is putting more effort into silencing people's mouths than it is into actually saving lives, that's not disaster relief anymore. That's a media blackout, plain and simple. And that's very, very clear to see. I think this whole thing is genuinely frightening.
So it's a local investigation this time?
No, this came from the Central Discipline Inspection Commission, not the provincial one. So there's a lot worth unpacking here, because Chinese civilization itself, a lot of people say its whole history is really the story of the relationship between people and water. Think of the legend of Yu the Great, taming the floods. The main job of the ancient emperors really was managing the water, dredging the Yellow River. So many Chinese people over the centuries have died in floods, far, far too many, you know? And that, of course, ties back to our whole relationship with water. As Chinese people, we've risen because of water, and we've fallen because of water too. It's all deeply connected to this water. After 1949, a huge number of people died as well, really, a huge number. Li Jun, you know this. The old chronicles never gave an exact figure for it. They just say millions upon millions of common folk became fish food. So you never really know if it means thousands or if it means millions.
It's probably not literally in the millions.
Not millions, more like thousands or tens of thousands, roughly. So really, sum up for us how China's relationship with water has gone since '49.
After 1949, take, for instance, the Great Yangtze Flood of 1954. The official figure at the time said the death toll came to roughly 33,000 people. 1998 was also a major flood year.
Right.
Right, that one was also called a once-in-a-century event. I was on the front lines fighting that flood myself. I lived through it. Final tallies then put the death toll over 4,000. But the situation today, I think, especially this year specifically, it's probably not just a small localized problem anymore. Honestly, right now, it feels like the whole country is flooding, north to south, east to west.
Right.
Down south, the worst is Hangzhou in Guangxi, we mentioned. The Liulan Reservoir collapse, 39 dead officially, but unofficial numbers run into the thousands. Then in Chongqing, Pengshui County, around July 17th, a hillside collapsed and flattened 2 rows of houses in an instant.
Right.
Officials reported 8 dead, 34 missing, but locals suspect the real number is far higher.
Right. And that building, it had quite a lot of floors to it.
Right.
Multiple multi-story buildings just got buried, and right next to it, a highway with a bus on it got swept away too.
Right.
And it happened so suddenly, people were shouting, "Run, get out, I saw that footage."
Yeah, that video was genuinely shocking.
And that brings up 1954 in party history. That flood is a textbook case of trading human lives for the dikes.
Oh.
These are the officially published numbers across the middle and lower Yangtze plus the Huai River Basin. That's Hubei, Hunan, Jiangxi, Anhui and Jiangsu. 5 provinces in total. A combined 123 counties and cities were affected by the disaster. The affected population was 18,888,000 people and 33,000 people died. That's the number they published.
And that's when China's population was maybe 500 or 600 million.
Right, but that number is the official floor, not the outside estimates ceiling. Outside estimates actually run far higher than that. And that flood was worse than 1931. Its volume and water levels both exceeded the 1931 Yangtze Huai flood.
It's called the worst flood in nearly a century, with Hubei hit hardest of all.
Because the water level recorded that year at the Hankou gauge station hit 29.73 metres, the highest ever recorded in the 100-plus years since the station opened in 1865, a record that still stands today, unbroken. And at that time, the danger points that appeared along Wuhan's Jianghan Dike numbered 21,523 separate incidents.
Wow.
That's a crisis breaking out on average less than every 10 minutes. Just imagine that. The entire dike was basically held together by human bodies. Hennan's Huaibin County was almost entirely submerged. Anhui lost over 1,000 people to the disaster. Jiangsu lost over 800, and these are only the official numbers, a small fraction of the real toll.
Right.
So is that 33,000 even real? Well, exactly. China's disaster numbers have always been political numbers, not statistics. They decide first what's politically acceptable for people to hear, and only then fill in the rest of the story. Take that earlier flood, the 1931 Yangtze flood. Outside researchers' estimates for just the death toll alone range anywhere from a few 100,000 all the way up to 3.7 million. That's an enormous gap. But back then, there was no single unified regime controlling the count or the message, so the numbers vary wildly. By 1954, though, the party had already been in power 5 years. Its propaganda machine and information controls were fully in place. That 33,000 number is actually, if anything, even more suspicious, precisely because it's a number that's been curated and cleaned up. It's not a number that comes from an actual count. So why spend so much time on a flood from 72 years ago? Because of the point you just raised, this year's Hengzhou Dam collapse by insider leaks already rivals the scale of what 1954 officially admitted to.
Right.
And the pattern is exactly the same. Sacrifice downstream, sacrifice upstream, sacrifice whichever area is deemed an acceptable loss, all to protect some bigger political goal. Since the timing lands just 2 days after the dam collapse went public, it doesn't feel like coincidence. It feels like a silencing operation dressed up as stability maintenance.
Right. In ancient China, people always talked about the Yellow River as the troublemaker, never the Yangtze. The Yellow River is the one that brought devastating disasters. Yangtze flooding used to be genuinely rare. Around the Jianghan area, there were 2 enormous natural reservoirs, Dongting Lake and Poyang Lake, and in ancient times, this whole region of Hubei was known as the Great Marsh. Well, you'd have to go all the way back to the Han Dynasty or even the Jin Dynasty before the Ming. Back then, this entire region was nothing but one giant lake and marshland. So when the Yangtze rose, the floodwater would naturally spread into the marsh on either side. That's why it was called the Great Marsh region. After the party took power, they started draining the lakes to make farmland, and that's the crucial part. You know Dongting Lake? How many times bigger was Dongting Lake back in 1950 compared to now? 5 times bigger than it is today. They needed farmland, so the entire lake bed of Dongting got built up higher and higher over time. So now, when it rains hard, it's not the Yangtze feeding into Dongting Lake anymore. It's Dongting Lake feeding into the Yangtze, completely reversed. More and more, what we see is Yangtze flooding, not Yellow River flooding.
Right, the old saying goes, the Yellow River brings disaster, the Yangtze brings benefit.
Right?
That's not just a saying, it's thousands of years of geographic fact.
Right.
Why did the ancient Yangtze rarely cause big disasters? The answer's in the Jianghan Plain and Dongting Lake.
Right.
There used to be one giant super lake there.
This is the very same place. This is where Liu Bang, after killing the white snake and starting his uprising, fled to when he was running. He ran and hid in what they called the Great Marsh. That's this exact spot right here.
That Great Lake, together with Dongting Lake, which later came along and replaced it, together worked essentially like a natural safety airbag for the entire Yangtze River.
Right.
Once flood season arrived, the floodwater would simply spill over into the lake. The lake surface would expand outward, and the water level would naturally drop back down on its own. There was really no need for anyone to fight against the water at all.
Right.
By 1949, the connected lakes of the Middle and Lower Yangtze still covered over 17,000 square kilometers. Now only Dongting and Poyang remain connected to the river, down to about 5,500 square kilometers, meaning that natural airbag has been punctured, over 70% of it gone. So this Yangtze flooding isn't the river's natural temperament, it's people, step by step, forcing nature into this state. Which is why the Three Gorges Dam is really this same logic taken to its extreme, artificially remaking the landscape with one. Or a giant man-made structure standing in for what the entire mid-river plain, the whole Dongting-Poyang lake system, used to naturally provide on its own, all by itself. So you asked earlier, if that dam fails, is it an existential disaster for the country? Well,
what are we getting at here?
that's not an exaggeration.
The dam you're talking about, you mean?
Three Gorges.
Three Gorges. Today, part of what we're discussing is what this Three Gorges executive, this Wu Qiren fellow, revealed about the situation in Guangxi. The other part of this is what these leaked internal Three Gorges group documents actually have to say, specifically about what would happen if the dam itself were ever to actually fail. According to these documents, the party's own internal system has already done an assessment. They did an internal assessment on the Three Gorges Dam, because right now there's a lot of information going around saying that the base of the dam has already started to leak, that there's already seepage happening, and that it's running at a rate of 30 cubic meters per second. That honestly sounds terrifying.
Per hour, I'd guess 30 cubic meters a second would be insane.
So this is genuinely making people anxious, genuinely alarming. So if something actually goes wrong at Three Gorges, what happens? I'm afraid, Ms. Guo, that your hometown specifically would be looking at a total, complete, catastrophic disaster.
Internal Three Gorges group documents circulating online spell it out clearly. A real dam failure would send the flood crest to Yichang in 6 hours, Jingzhou and Wuhan in 24, Anqing and Zhujiang in 72, and within a week the flooding would spread to its maximum extent, reaching Nanjing and Shanghai. The total affected population by their internal modelling is 132 million people.
Right.
Just counting the areas where the water depth was over 2 meters, which counts as severe flooding, that alone comes out to 63 million people. Shanghai alone is projected at 24,800,000 affected.
Shanghai is definitely going to get hit hard because Shanghai sits so low, the water level there, the elevation, it's practically at sea level, right? Exactly. And places like Hangzhou, Wuxi, Changzhou, Nanjing, they'd all be looking at anywhere from a few million people up to tens of millions of people affected.
Highways cut off across more than 7,400 kilometres, railways cut off across more than 2,300 kilometres, 156 bridges destroyed, 18 airports affected, and 27 ports affected as well. That's their own internal estimate. Put all those numbers together, and this isn't a single reservoir failure anymore, it's the entire economic backbone of the middle lower Yangtze, potentially over half submerged within a week.
Right.
So with the dam's base seeping 30 cubic metres an hour per this internal information, party leaders have already arranged for their own families to evacuate while telling rank and file staff to stay at their posts. That's exactly why one slip of the tongue got Wu Qiren hauled away instantly. Because at this point, this issue isn't even about whether some local official is corrupt or not anymore. It's touching the single most sensitive nerve at the very core of the entire regime. Because the danger at Three Gorges has been discussed for years already.
Right.
If this news gets out now, everyone's going to panic.
Right.
This is a crucial detail. The Chinese government has never, even internally, published an estimate of how many would die if Three Gorges failed. The only thing they ever estimate is money. 10 years ago, an internal assessment, this number leaked just now, put the loss at over 40 trillion yuan if the dam failed. What does 40 trillion yuan even mean? Let's compare it to a number people remember. The 1998 Yangtze flood, direct economic loss across the whole basin, officially was 255.1 billion yuan. That's the flood when Hong Kong celebrities were donating money, remember? Anita Moy and others held benefit concerts. It was already the costliest flood since the party took power.
Right.
40 trillion. That's over 150 times more than the total losses from that huge flood back in 1998. In other words, the party knows perfectly well this wouldn't be just a bigger flood. It would be an existential disaster shaking the entire national economy. Jiangsu, Anhui, Jiangxi, Hubei, Shanghai, these are China's most economically developed provinces and cities, together contributing close to half of the entire country's GDP. And if all of them end up sitting underwater at once, then China's entire economy is basically going to get cut cleanly in half.
Right.
So, but notice this, that 40 trillion figure, it's counting factories, it's counting equipment, it's counting GDP losses. Not a single figure in that whole calculation is counting actual human lives. That's the regime's rawest value system, right there. Human lives don't even get a column in their spreadsheets under a natural disaster. And past regimes would at least go through the motions of disaster relief, would provide some compensation, would even build monuments to remember the dead. But today, a modern regime, one holding satellites, hydrological models, supercomputers, algorithms, still won't calculate how many people would die in a dam failure and doesn't dare bring up the question. It's not that they can't calculate it, the number's too terrifying, classified into multiple tiers, a 72-hour version, a 1-week version, a 3-month version, a 6-month version, climbing the chain level by level, but it never reaches ordinary people. So a regime is perfectly willing to pour effort into precisely calculating economic loss because that economic loss touches its own foundation of power, its tax revenue, its international image. But human lives, as long as they don't die in front of a camera, somewhere that could ignite public anger to the party, that's just a number to be quietly absorbed and handled internally. Look at Hangzhou and Guangxi. Officials reported 39 dead. Insiders leaked over 17,000, a gap of more than 400 times. And that gap isn't a statistical error either, it's the result of a choice about what gets counted and what doesn't, what gets published, or whether the whole scene just gets sealed off with police and troops to cover the whole thing up. It's the exact same logic they use to calculate Three Gorges' economic losses, the same playbook we just described.
Exactly. So Three Gorges itself, when it was being built, I remember plenty of experts, and I was in China at the time, people who discussed it with us said some experts literally got on their knees at the Great Hall of the People, begging them not to build the dam sheer force, right? But in the end, they built it anyway. So the Chinese Communist Party You could say that since founding the country, it's built more dams than any other country on Earth, right? That's right. The Yangtze and the Yellow River are both packed dense with them. Actually, I want to close with something from our own Chinese tradition. Some of these approaches, when you really think about it, are fighting directly against nature itself. The Great's flood control, everyone knows his core method was channeling the water, guiding it. Because before him, when they tried blocking it, it caused disaster after disaster. His method wasn't about blocking. In Chinese tradition, great rivers like this are seen as alive. Some call them dragon veins, and the Yangtze is one. When you dam a river into a chain of reservoirs, it's like stuffing plugs into a blood vessel. Eventually the blood stops flowing, and sooner or later something breaks badly. Right. People today think our technology is powerful enough to conquer anything, but nature's laws are merciless. Break them, and it punishes you with floods, landslides, geological shifts.
So, of course, exactly how many people died in the Hangzhou flood and why Wu Qiren was really investigated at this particular moment, these are things that genuinely deserve an open, independent inquiry. But inside a system like this, because absolutely nothing is transparent and nothing is ever disclosed to the public, everyone is left to guess for themselves. And that guessing is exactly what breeds every kind of rumor, every kind of wild theory, and yes, even outright deliberately malicious disinformation. So the fix is really just one thing: openness, transparency, letting everyone know. But I think what truly frightens me isn't this flood itself. It's a system that treats the truth as a state secret and treats its own people as nothing more than a line item on a spreadsheet. This Three Gorges Dam. Once you look at what happened at the Lulan Reservoir in Hangzhou, everyone starts thinking about the Three Gorges question too. This dam touches the lives of hundreds of millions of people, maybe 300 million, living along the middle and lower Yangtze alone. Not everyone would necessarily be flooded, but everyone, every single person, would feel the impact somehow. This touches the very lifeblood of China's national fate, and every single person has a real stake in understanding it. I think the authorities should open this up for real public debate, otherwise it's simply laying the groundwork for the next catastrophe. This is something that I think absolutely no one, and especially no Chinese person, would ever want to see happen. Well, we've actually said quite a lot today already about this whole topic. I really hope everyone watching will keep following along with us and stay on top of this story. Well, that's all the time we have for today's discussion. A very big thank you to both of our guests, and of course, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time on the program.